Today is January the 18th. We are in the local vigilance area in the Tribog area. Specifically, it is for the first time this week not in wind chill that is in single digits. It's more like 30s today. So chilly, but not as chilly. And after a week of being in single digit temperatures and having acclimated to that, it's actually not that bad. It is windy, but that's every day up here. Anyway, we don't really have much of an agenda today just because of events of the week, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to get out, have a look. The snow is, as you can see, gone. So we're going to have a look around and look for sign and do the basics and see what else comes up, see what occurs to me. But beyond that, there's not really, today is like getting out of the house and having a look around and doing the due diligence for the week. So come on along, maybe we'll find something, and that's the plan for the day. Thanks. But then again, I freely admit also I don't perceive that it's any specific cause, because quite honestly, if I don't know, I don't know, and that's my answer. I don't know what the hell it is. I mean, you do hear weird ass things out here on occasion, and a lot of them are attributable to things like you'll hear all kinds of like weird creaking noises, and again, you have big trees and they're swaying literally in the wind, and you have a whole range of octaves you'll hear from that. I just literally heard like a drumming sound, which is probably something like that tree over there knocking up against there as the wind hits it. It doesn't sound like it to the human imagination, but keyword imagination. So I did want to bring that up because that is one thing that did occur during the week that is sort of Bigfoot related, at least woodland anomaly related. In the course of events, I'm going to ask some folks, as I'm probably about to renew a passport, if anyone actually, I'm thinking more towards the spring time frame, but if anyone has knowledge of any kind of potential activity that's happening in, say, because a couple of years ago there was some stuff potentially going on in the Moncton, New Brunswick area, and I wouldn't mind some new scenery if things are quiet in my normal areas, and they have been in the last year or two. So if we were to change it up, maybe take a Canadian field trip during the spring would be a kind of a cool thing to do. And if you're going to do that from the States, you do have to, I think you have to be aware there's certain things you probably cannot bring with you along the Squatching way. I mean, aside from things like firearms or things like that, because Canadian gun laws are very different from U.S. ones. They are a lot more, they're a lot less gun friendly in a lot of ways than at least your red states are. But also things like night vision are classified as things that are not subject to export, which basically means you can't bring them across the border, even into Canada. You'd have to get something there. Although, if your night vision was known to be made in China, does that apply? Because that's an interesting concept. Anyway, food for thought. For anyone who's suggesting, well, why not Nova Scotia? Very low amount of reports of anything like that coming out of Nova Scotia. And even though you had that one report come out of Prince Edward Island, last I knew, they didn't even have a deer population there. So, kind of pointless. Whereas New Brunswick is actually, in some areas along the coast, got some pretty woodsy areas. So I don't know. It's something to think about too. Because I had an area up there on my radar a few years back, and it's like there's logistics obviously in getting there, but So I have some thinking to do about that for planning. As we approach segment break number 1, and I don't want to be standing underneath. It actually is like not down. It's more kind of grew weird almost. Anyway, I'm going to take a segment break. I'm going to think about what else to discuss, or just I'm going to go into that area and have a look around. Maybe cross over the stream and move into another area. But to Tom, it's a good guess, but I'm not thinking that's what it was based on the fact unlike some people that just are out there and they just listen, I actually took readings. And I still have those readings. And if you were to find them somewhere, I have them posted in a number of places. And if you were to find them, I actually took measurements. So, I mean, draw your own conclusions. But I don't think what you're suggesting is what they were. Because when it happened the first time, it didn't sound like any kind of a cracking or something like that. It was like literally a pulsating, kind of like a wah, 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 wah kind of sound. It was almost literally like somebody playing with audio equipment. So I don't see ice expanding and contracting, making a pulsating sound. Crunching, moaning, that kind of thing. And I did look this up, but that, no. So I respectfully disagree with your assessment, and you weren't here to have all the nuances of it, but good guess, though. Anyway, we're going to take a segment break, and we will be back in a little bit. Signatures. You hear the sound, count 1, 2, 3. You get hit with a burst of infrasound and EMF and EF radiation, or frequencies. I keep wanting to say radiation. No, like frequencies that are... And when it was first happening, I literally... could on that hill that's over there, just to make a point of reference, because it kind of went over like a wave. You could literally feel it. This was not ice breaking. This was weird. Weirdness happens, and that was not... What he's talking about is a legitimate thing, sort of like wood pops, but that's not what this was. And to kind of stir something with Tom, just because he'll probably chuckle at this. When we were in Vermont in 2012, that thing that you and the young lady in question thought was an orb, there's a pump house light that's right about where you would have seen that, and you're driving along a winding road. You saw the pump house light. It was not an orb. Why do I say that? Because until proven otherwise, orbs don't exist. Sorry, but orbs are bullshit. The reason why things like this are on my mind, it seems like in my YouTube feed this week, a lot of things came up where people are making fun of the show Ancient Aliens. With one younger lady, probably out of college a few years, jokingly has turned it into a drinking game. And that actually makes more sense than the show itself. Because when Ancient Alien, when Ancient Alien theorists believe and they drink, like, there you go, you're good. You're going to be sloshed by the end of the show. Because they say that a lot, and then they spew a lot of high-octane bullshit. Because their take on things is that ancient humans were freaking basically dressed monkeys who were too dumb to figure out shit on their own, and therefore aliens had to come down and do it all for us. Despite the fact that's a load of crap. But, whatever. And what was the other thing I saw this week? Oh yeah, crop circles, hoaxes or human art? It is literally human art. I've seen a documentary where somebody was showing literally how they did it. You know who's doing it? People. In a more artistic rendition of how people tag things in the city and have their graffiti wars and shit. Like, this is basically the same thing, but in a weirder, more bucolic way. They go out and they're apparently in competition with other groups. And it's probably people that are in the know or they're not, and they're doing these crazy patterns, but the guy showed how they did it, and it's perfectly doable by people. As opposed to the logic of aliens having literally nothing better to do. They have all the technology in the world, or in this case, the universe, and they come to Earth to make pretty pictures in the corn circles of the hairless monkeys that are growing wheat for a crop. But let's make a little pattern there to communicate with them, because apparently there's nothing else to do. If they are doing shit like that, you know what that is? That is the alien equivalent to cow tipping. Let's go to Earth and fuck with the humans. That's what they're doing. That would make so much more sense. After all the time and energy wasted on wondering what their intentions and meetings were, you know what it ends up being? Aliens have pranks too, and that's what it was. It was a practical joke, and while we're down here puzzling it over, they're upstairs in their little flying saucer, the UFO brand flying saucer, laughing their ass off telepathically because we're trying to marvel over something like, dude, it's a joke. It's like, human, dude, it's a joke. Like, they're actually, yeah, you know, they can't be impressed with us. But anyway, random thoughts, which is why we're going to segment break again until I find something interesting or I hear another little sound over there. If I can get it on the camera, I will, but it's such a, what he's talking about is such a subtle, it's a lot more subtle than what I was hearing the other week. And what I did get on the camera was ironically on a night vision rifle scope. It's a weird thing to have if you think about it, get better audio than an actual camera does, but it didn't really do it justice, but it kind of gave I can see where if he heard that, it would make it sound like a rumble. But what I just heard, which is probably what he is talking about, it's not the same sound. Completely different pitch. But then again, you thought a pump house light was an orb, and here we are. Examples of silly misidentifying shenanigans in the joys of what is Bigfootery. Anyway, we're going to segment break again before we start just rambling about whatever, and we'll be back again in a bit. You know the drill. We'll be back. We will be back as I stop tripping over my own words. That's problematic too. Tennessee. She's a southern gal, and I'm going to say probably Tennessee. Maybe one of the Carolinas, but it sounded like Tennessee to me, and kind of like a Nashville kind of thing. And if I just butchered that, I'm not from down south, so shut up, leave me alone. Anyway, they were hiking. I'm just going to tell her story vicariously, and they were coming up there, and they encountered the 12 tribes, and before they realized they were dealing with a cult, they agreed to stay at the hostel in the Yellow Deli, and they obviously got out without any trouble. They don't try to keep you there or anything, and they basically say they're like, well, they did make us separate by gender, and kind of like they had a weird little, because they are a Christian cult. They kind of had like dress code expectations, like keep it modest and all that, and they're letting you stay there for free. So I mean, those are the rules, I guess. But your ride there your ride back, and the farm is in the middle of bleeping rural Vermont, not near nothing. So that's a long walk back. Should they decide, well, you're here, you might as well stay, and they're not keeping you there by force, really, but they're not giving you a ride back. So not exactly kidnapping, but not, well, I don't know. That's kind of like skirting the line, because kidnapping can be committed by way of deception, too. Knowing what I know of the law, kidnapping doesn't need to be done by force. It can actually be done by deception, too, but that's a different topic for a different day. These guys it's interesting to read about the experience with them, because I remember that one guy, and he kind of gave me the vibe, like he might be one of those guys, but I didn't really engage with him, so whatever. Those are my thoughts on that. Jevning is an interesting guy. I've heard some people, you hear the scuttlebutt around the community, but having been around the community myself since 2003, there may very well be scuttlebutt about me out there too. And I was there. I know what happened, and there are two sides to every story, and there comes a point where I just get bored with trying to dignify something with a response. I will say, however, the community unfortunately has no shortage of grifters and charlatans and social climbers who will fuck you. Who will fuck you over if they have a reason to. It has happened to me on more. I probably am on the verge of running out of fingers and toes that I can count on. with that as a consideration, unfortunately. It does happen, and it's why you see me not in a group anymore. I kind of do my own thing, and again, right now I'm doing what I call a commentary video, where I'm just kind of out sharing my thoughts as I kind of sweep through, and I probably am doing more of a pattern sweep than you realize, because, again, the value of coming into an area like this and coming through on a regular basis, you notice the subtle changes week to week. I noticed one the other week where there was something I pointed out last video. I'm like, last week or the week before, that was not there. So that was made, and it was a good example of a obviously man-made thing, because people on the logging road end do go up and down that. Hunters, that's their main ingress end. And hunters do get further out, sadly enough. They're not as subtle in hiding their toys as I think. There's a little stash last year that was over there. There's a tree stand down the hill and around the corner, down in a dip over by the pond, down the backside. Those are two that I'm aware of in this area. There's two. If you left the boat launch area, that's probably over the hill, and then a couple more dales over that way, and go into the other area beyond that. Go up the hill on the backside of what I'll call it a mountain. It's a foothill. I'll call it a mountain for the sake of argument, though. On the backside, there's one over there, a tree stand, a newer one. And then way up on the area that I call the thinking trail, that was facilitated by timber harvesters, aka Connecticut jargon for loggers. There's another one that's been out there for God knows how long. It's rusty as hell, and you wouldn't pay me to get up there. You take your life into your hands on that one. Rustier than shite. It's been out in the elements for at least 20 years. It's been there a long time. And with as much as they cost, you think people would come back and reclaim them, but I guess not. So that's enough rambling for this segment break, and we'll come back again as I'm going to go a little bit further north just to see if there's any signs of anything interesting up here. Or any signs of any changes and when we'll be back or not. But again, real research. This is acting. This is all conducted that way. I mean, finding Bigfoot for me was a little contrived too, but not to the level that the Expedition Bigfoot crowd are. And they come out now like they're... There was actually a hiccup the other week with people the next state over, one of whom was involved in Expedition Bigfoot, and the joys of when the joys of when Bigfoot social climbing goes south. And you have the person who, and I've encountered this myself, not that I'm a Bigfooting celebrity, because I've gone a long time out of my way not to be that specifically, but I have seen where you have the person who very clearly is social climbing. They're friends with everybody until they get to a point of perceived notoriety in their own right. And then all of a sudden, well, we don't need you anymore because, yeah, now we're famous, so fuck everybody. Well, that's nice. They forget one thing. Doodly is Bigfoot. You're trying to become a celebrity in a field that many people don't take seriously. So congratulations, you're the top dog of Easter Bunny hunters. You think Mommy's proud? Mommy would urge you to guess again. It's a hobby, folks. At least it is for me. But getting back to my original point, I wonder if it's getting oversaturated from these shows, and then you get into the silly ones like Mountain Monsters. I mean, with Mountain Monsters, let's face it, you're dealing with just like live action Scooby-Doo, the redneck edition, and actually got a little scolding from I won't mention names to keep the peace, because he did return like a roach after atomic testing to the community after saying he was gone. Not surprised, but he got all close with some of the guys from Mountain Monsters. And I'm going to kind of, I just felt like walking by that burl to have a close-up of that burl. I'm going to word this in a way that may or may not come across as semi-diplomatic, but it came across as a loyalty to friends thing, which is admirable on some levels. But it also compromises some integrity of certain people as serious researchers, because Mountain Monsters is live action redneck Bigfoot. I mean, Bigfoot related freaking Scooby-Doo. It's all it is. I'll say it again, and if I offend this party, wah. When Trapper was blinded by being pissed on in the eye by Sheep Squatch, comedy gold. They probably did not intend it to be comedy gold, but as far as Bigfoot-related TV, that is probably one of the single most funniest episodes ever. And if it was only ironically funny after the fact, that makes it all the more funny. Because you were actually serious, weren't you? That's hysterical. That is hysterical. Funniest episode ever, Sheep Squatch. Because then you have the copycats on YouTube and they're doing the cryptids of this state or the other state, and suddenly there's Sheep Squatch. Like, dude, it's something somebody made up for Mountain Monsters and you're making it real. Oh, either that or there is some high octane quality moonshine down that way and you see things. Either way, before I go too far off the tangent, we're going to call this one here. It's quiet here today. A couple of interesting noises. I did find a pile, given the weather and how cold it's been, of rock solid bear or moose leavings, probably moose given the time of the year. And we'll catch you on the next one, and hopefully there's more going on. This does tend to be kind of a more introspective, quiet time of year, so we'll hope for some activity. And again, if I can work out details, I wouldn't mind doing a north of the border kind of field trip just to break things up, change things up. Stay tuned for that. In the meantime, like, subscribe, do all the YouTuber stuff, and we'll catch you on the next one. And as always, bye.